action. You look at the burning horizon. You look at the algorithmic furnace of the new city. You feel the blistering heat of the Bing-Wu, the fire horse, and you believe you are looking at power. You watch the masses scream in the digital colosseum, driven mad by the false trumpets and the Mars frequency. You watch the king of terror extract the kinetic energy of billions of human batteries, and you think to yourself that this is the ultimate authority. You think the fire is the ruler of the board. You are hallucinating. Fire is not authority. Fire is simply a chemical reaction. It is consumption. It is volatile, desperate, and ultimately finite. Fire requires fuel, and when the fuel is exhausted, the fire dies. The architects of the new city, the technocrats, the data brokers, the masters of the digital panopticon, they wield the fire, yes. They use it to blind the herd. They use it to induce the mass psychosis of the current year. But they are terrified. They are terrified because they know the fire is merely a temporary distraction from the actual, immovable, unyielding ruler of this reality. They are terrified of the cold. They are terrified of the dark. They are terrified of the boundary. They are terrified of Saturn. This is a strategic briefing on the Great Malefic. We are going to decode the oldest, heaviest, and most punishing planetary frequency in the solar system. We are going to explain why the ancient world looked at Saturn with absolute dread, and why the modern world has foolishly tried to pretend he no longer exists. Most importantly, we are going to teach you why Saturn is the only frequency that matters in 2026, and how the sovereign mind must weaponize the crushing weight of the Great Malefic to achieve absolute, ruthless, strategic dominance in the physical world. Fate is a code to be broken. Let us decode the iron wall. To understand Saturn, you must discard the modern, sanitized view of the cosmos. You must return to the old city. You must return to the naked eye. Before the invention of the telescope, before the digital age, human beings looked up at the night sky and observed the boundaries of their existence. They saw the moon, fast and erratic. They saw Mercury, the messenger. They saw Venus, bright and alluring. They saw the sun, the blazing center of life. They saw Mars, red and violent. They saw Jupiter, the great benefic, golden and expansive. And then, at the very edge of human vision, moving slower than any other body, cold, dim, and heavy, they saw Saturn. Saturn was the end of the line. Saturn was the wall. Beyond Saturn was the terrifying, incomprehensible darkness of the infinite void. Saturn was the guardian of the threshold, the final physical boundary of the solar system as they knew it. Because of this, the ancients assigned Saturn the rulership of everything that limits human expansion. They called him Chronos, time. They called him the Lord of Karma. They called him the Great Malefic. Why malefic? Why evil? Because human beings despise limits. Human beings, governed by their egos and their dopamine receptors, want infinite expansion. They want infinite wealth without physical labor. They want infinite youth without the decay of the physical vessel. They want to commit actions without facing the physical consequences of those actions. Jupiter tells you that you can have it all. Jupiter is the planet of luck, of growth, of philosophy, of the infinite horizon. Society loves Jupiter. The algorithm is built on a bastardized, synthetic version of Jupiterian promises. The black glass in your hand tells you that you can connect with everyone on Earth instantly. It tells you that your opinion matters. It tells you that you can be the main character of reality without ever leaving your chair. It promises a frictionless existence. Saturn is the exact opposite of frictionless. Saturn is absolute, grinding, agonizing friction. Saturn is the bill coming due. Saturn is the audit. Saturn is gravity. Saturn is the realization that your physical body is aging, that your time is running out, and that every single action you have ever taken carries an inescapable, objective weight. The ancient world feared Saturn because the ancient world respected physical reality. They knew that winter was coming. They knew that the harvest could fail. They knew that disease, decay, and death were the ultimate, unavoidable facts of the physical universe. Saturn was the planetary embodiment of these cold, hard truths. But the new city has tried to banish Saturn. The technocrats of the digital age have built an entire civilization on the premise that Saturn can be hacked. They believe they can cure aging. They believe they can print infinite fiat currency without triggering hyperinflation. They believe they can move human consciousness into the cloud, escaping the heavy, mortal coil of the physical vessel. They have created a hyper-reality where consequences are delayed, where physical actions are replaced by digital avatars, and where the grinding friction of the old city is replaced by the smooth, frictionless scrolling of the feed. They have insulated the masses from the great malefic. They have created a society of perpetual children, addicted to the dopamine of the fire horse, completely disconnected from the cold, heavy iron of physical law. This is the great deception of 2026. The Bing Wu year, the fire horse, is the ultimate manifestation of this anti-Saturnian delusion. It is a year of explosive, blinding, kinetic heat. It is a year where the masses, possessed by the egregores of the digital colosseum, believe they can burn down the structures of reality with their manufactured outrage. They are running on the Mars frequency, highly adrenalized, highly emotional, and completely devoid of long-term strategic thought. But fire, no matter how hot, cannot burn iron. When the synthetic, accelerated, highly volatile energy of the new city slams into the immutable physical boundary of the old city, the result is not a negotiation. The result is a catastrophic collision. Think of the physics of a high-speed impact. Think of a machine built for pure, blinding acceleration. A vehicle composed entirely of speed, ego, and kinetic force, roaring down a highway, ignoring every warning sign, ignoring the friction of the road, believing itself to be invincible. What happens when that vehicle hits a wall of solid, reinforced concrete? The illusion of speed is instantly, violently shattered by the reality of mass. The kinetic energy does not vanish. It is transferred directly into the structure of the vehicle, tearing it apart at the molecular level. The sudden, brutal, agonizing halt, the physical destruction, the shattered glass, the broken chassis. That is Saturn. Saturn is the wall. Saturn is the physical trauma that reminds the speeding delusion that reality has a terminal velocity. In 2026, the entire digital culture is speeding toward the Saturnine wall. The masses are suffering from the somatic toll. Their bodies are breaking down under the stress of the kinetic trap. They are experiencing the cardiac crunch because they are trying to run a high-performance digital engine while seated in a decaying physical chair. They are experiencing the collision internally. But the sovereign mind does not experience the collision. The sovereign mind operates the wall. To achieve absolute strategic dominance in this era of mass psychosis, you must consciously, deliberately align yourself with the frequency of the great malefic. You must become cold. You must become heavy. You must become the immovable object against which the fire horse breaks its own neck. Let us apply this directly to the architecture of power. Let us look at the legal arena. If you are an operator in the legal system, if you are defending a perimeter or executing a strike against an adversary, you must understand that the courtroom is the ultimate temple of Saturn. The law is not meant to be hot. The law is not meant to be emotional. The law is not meant to be responsive to the frantic, screaming outrage of the digital mob. The law is designed to be cold, heavy, methodical, and ruthlessly objective. The law is the iron cage designed to contain the chaotic fire of human nature. But in 2026, your adversaries will attempt to bring the fire into the temple. They will approach legal disputes with the energy of the Bing Wu. They will be highly emotional. They will be erratic. They will make arguments based on public relations, digital vanity, and moral panic. They will try to use the false trumpets of the media to pressure you into submission. They will be frantic, demanding immediate resolution, entirely incapable of withstanding the slow, grinding friction of the legal process. The amateur, the prey, gets pulled into their fire. The amateur lawyer tries to match their volume. The amateur gets defensive, tries to argue the morality of the case in the public square, and seeks a rapid settlement to mitigate the heat. The amateur looks at the chaos, feels the discomfort, and asks, "How can we make this go away quickly? How can we limit our exposure?" We have stated this before, and it is the bedrock of our doctrine. Mitigation is the language of the prey. Mitigation is an insult to Saturn. Mitigation implies that you are afraid of the time, the effort, and the friction required to execute absolute justice. When an adversary brings fire into your perimeter, you do not fight fire with fire. You fight fire with lead. You embrace the great malefic. You do not seek a quick settlement. You do not offer concessions to alleviate their panic. You use the complex, bureaucratic, deeply buried rules of civil procedure, the heavy, unyielding architecture of Saturn, to methodically crush them. You execute the protocol of delay. Saturn rules time. Time is the ultimate weapon against an opponent who is running on the fast, cheap dopamine of the digital age. The possessed mind cannot handle silence. The possessed mind cannot handle waiting. They require constant kinetic feedback to feel alive. When you drag them into the deep, slow, agonizing waters of extended litigation, when you force them to read thousands of pages of physical, analog documentation, When you bury them in procedural friction, you are starving their adrenal glands. You are forcing their fast twitch digital muscles to carry the heavy physical stones of the old city. They will break. Their fire energy will exhaust itself against your Saturnine wall. They will make massive, catastrophic, ego-driven mistakes because their brains are running hot and they lack the discipline to hold a long-term strategic position. And when they break, when they are exhausted, dehydrated, and begging for a compromise, you do not show mercy. Mercy is a Jupiterian concept. Saturn does not know mercy. Saturn only knows consequence. You drop the anvil. You do not just win the case, you establish a permanent, terrifying precedent. You extract their capital, you dismantle their standing, and you leave their structure in ruins. You use their own volatile mistakes as the very chains that bind them. You make the physical and financial pain of colliding with your perimeter so absolute that the invisible egregores governing their behavior learn to permanently route around your citadel. This is not cruelty. This is physics. It is the necessary application of physical law to a digital hallucination. This exact same methodology applies to the consolidation of capital and the building of your physical empire. The financial markets in 2026 are a hallucination built on the fire horse. Valuations are untethered from physical reality. Companies are rewarded for their digital footprint, their algorithmic engagement, and their alignment with the false trumpets. They are entirely frictionless. But a frictionless business has no foundation. When the algorithm changes, when the mob moves on to a new outrage, the frictionless business evaporates. The sovereign mind does not build in the cloud. The sovereign mind builds in the dirt. To align with Saturn, you must secure heavy, physical, institutional capital. You do not chase the volatile, retail money of the digital casino. You go to the ancient, slow-moving, heavily regulated institutions of the old city. You secure the massive, bureaucratic loans. You endure the grueling, invasive, deeply uncomfortable friction of institutional underwriting. You allow the Saturnine auditors to examine every inch of your financial architecture. Why? Because institutional capital is heavy. It is anchored to the bedrock of the physical economy. When you secure this capital, you do not deploy it into the digital ether. You deploy it into physical mass. You buy the real estate. You buy the heavy machinery. You buy the wet ink contracts. You build a physical infrastructure that cannot be erased by a shadow ban or a server outage. You build the analog archive. You print the books. You store the data offline, and you create an immutable, physical record of your reality that the King of Terror cannot touch. While your competitors are spending their capital on digital visibility, chasing the fleeting light of the Bing Wu, you are quietly, methodically, expanding your footprint in the dark. You are acting as the gray man. Saturn is the ultimate gray man. He sits at the edge of the visible system, slow, silent, and entirely unconcerned with the frantic, blinding heat of the inner planets. He simply waits. He knows that all things must eventually come to his border. He knows that all fire must eventually burn down to ash, and that the ash belongs to the earth. This requires a fundamental rewiring of your nervous system. You have been conditioned to fear the heavy. You have been trained to seek comfort, speed, and immediate gratification. You have been taught that if something is difficult, slow, or painful, it is wrong. You must unlearn this programming. You must develop a profound, intimate relationship with discomfort. You must learn to love the friction. When you feel the weight of a complex problem, when you feel the exhaustion of a long, grueling negotiation, when you feel the physical strain of lifting heavy iron during your ATP dump, you must not seek to escape it. You must recognize it as the frequency of the great malefic entering your biology. You must welcome it. This is the weight of reality. You tell yourself. This is the iron that forges the sovereign mind. This is the cold that hardens the steel. By accepting the friction, by voluntarily taking on the heavy, saturnine burdens that the rest of society is frantically trying to avoid, you achieve an unparalleled level of structural integrity. The people who avoid Saturn become fragile. Their nervous systems become brittle. Because they have never carried a heavy load, the slightest inconvenience, the slightest algorithmic trigger, causes them to shatter. They are the glass waiting for the crash. You are the concrete. As we progress through the Bing Wu year, the mass psychosis will reach its absolute peak. The false trumpets will blow until the brass splits. The empty prophets will lead their screaming, possessed flocks into the digital incinerator. The egregores will gorge themselves on the adrenal exhaustion of the human race. It will look like the end of the world. It is not the end of the world. It is simply the end of the illusion. The fire is burning away the synthetic, the fragile, and the false. It is clearing the lot. It is destroying the weak structures built by the architects of the new city. But when the fire finally exhausts itself, when the Bing Wu transitions into the Ding Wei, the year of the ghost, and the silent ash begins to fall, only the heavy things will remain. Only the physical things will remain. Only Saturn will remain. If you have spent the year mitigating your risk, if you have spent the year trying to appease the fire, you will be nothing but a shadow in the graveyard. But if you have spent the year aligning with the great malefic, if you have embraced the cold, heavy, unyielding friction of the old city, you will be the only entity left standing on the board with the structural integrity to rule. You will own the physical assets. You will hold the unbreakable legal precedents. You will possess the institutional capital. You will be the master of the analog archive. You will not just survive the crash. You will own the road. The masses are terrified of the dark because they do not understand what lives in it. They run toward the blinding, consuming light of the screen because they are afraid of the silence, afraid of the weight, afraid of the time. You must walk away from the light. You must step back from the black glass. You must sever the connection to the algorithmic furnace. You must establish the air gap. Walk to the edge of the visible perimeter. Stand in the cold. Feel the immense, terrifying gravity of the physical universe. The great malefic is not evil. The great malefic is the ultimate truth. He is the ultimate judge. He is the only planet that matters right now, because he is the only planet that cannot be simulated. Embrace the heavy, embrace the iron, embrace the consequence. The sovereign mind does not negotiate with the fire. The sovereign mind drops the anvil and watches the fire extinguish beneath the crushing weight of reality. This is prescient. We are watching from the boundary, and we are calculating the physics of your absolute, unyielding conquest. On this channel, we decode the architecture of fate, breaking it down into systems you can use to dominate the board. If you possess the iron discipline for this type of content, subscribe to our channel. Otherwise, return to the fire. We may never see each other again. See you again soon, dear viewer.